So some of the news we've already seen this morning at the conference, a new company founded to undercut the price of your drugs and other companies' drugs called EQRx. What do you make of this proposition? They're saying they're going to be the Amazon of pharma.
Well, it's interesting. I read the press release. I don't know much about their business model. Of course, this is an idea that's been tried before. There are lower list price launch drugs in many categories. Unfortunately, they haven't found as much success as one might think. And I think that exposes the complexity of the supply chain and how medicines get to patients and the role that the supply chain plays, which is a much stronger one than the consumer demand. I think there's so much innovation right now in our industry. That's exciting. We need more innovation on that payment and reimbursement side. And so I would welcome any ideas. If this is a good one, let's see what it does. I think big companies like Lilly need to play a role too. We need to innovate, find new ways to make sure our medicines are affordable to patients at the pharmacy counter.
Does a company coming out saying we're going to offer a drug at the price 1/3 to 1/5 of perhaps one of Eli Lilly's biggest medicines, does that make you nervous, or do you feel like the supply chain is so complex they won't be able to break through it?
Well, I think that's happened before, and as I'm saying, and it didn't find much success. Of course, ultimately, we have significant price competition when we lose our patent and go generic. I think the idea here is to create sort of Me Too medicines that would be a lower price alternative. That can work, but usually the primary reason doctors choose a medicine for a patient is the evidence behind it. So it's difficult to both pursue a robust R&D agenda, to have a full portfolio, full list of indications and great data, and afford to charge less. Some have tried it. It hasn't found much success. You know, we ourselves have launched a half-price insulin.
Right.
And so far, mixed results. About 1 out of 10 prescriptions for Humalog is the half-price version. About 1 out of 5 formularies cover it. So I think that tells you there's something more than just the supply side. There's a demand side problem with how pricing gets resolved in this industry.
Well, so you came out with that half-priced insulin last year, and then you got some flack from Senators Elizabeth Warren and Richard Blumenthal saying that you hadn't made it available enough in pharmacies and people couldn't actually get it. Has that been addressed? Is it more available? Do people know about it? Can they get that half-priced insulin?
They could get it before the report came out, and they can get it now. They asserted 3 things that just weren't true. 1, it wasn't available. 2, we didn't try to make it available. And 3, that it was sort of a gimmick, that it doesn't actually affect market pricing. All of those things weren't true. We did, certainly we tried to make it available, and it is broadly available through all the wholesalers. We sell to wholesalers, pharmacies have to buy from them. It's true for any medicine that if you walk into a pharmacy, they may not have it on the shelf, but to the point on insulin, usually within a day, they can get the insulin you want, and that includes the half-price insulin. So coast to coast, it's available, and if consumers want it, they should ask for it from their pharmacist. If they don't have it at that moment, they can get it. I think the bigger issue is formulary coverage, which, as I said, 1 out of 5 formularies cover it today. Why aren't more? I think we'd like to see more coverage, even though net pricing is the same. And it's not a gimmick. In fact, we have a competitor on Humalog that is a real biosimilar made by Sanofi, our competitor. The day we launched our half-price insulin, they cut their biosimilar price to half as well. So it did create price competition. Consumers are benefiting.
So this is an election year, of course, and drug pricing is always a huge topic during an election. How consequential is the presidential election for Eli Lilly's business? Does who the next president is matter for you guys?
Of course, policy matters. Our industry is reliant on a lot of federal policies for how reimbursement works, and of course the FDA regulates us. It's not the most important thing, but it's a very important thing. The most important thing is, can we invent new and better medicines for patients with unmet need? And I think there's never been a better time for that than right now in our industry. I'm so excited by what's happening in our early stage pipeline for really tough conditions that can affect in a very significant way the health of Americans and around the world. At the same time, the policies by which they get to the market, as we've been talking about, need change, and we're for change. There's a number of bills on the Hill now that Lilly and the pharmaceutical industry are for, to reform Part D, to make the system more transparent. We'd like to see those move under this president or a different one. We think change is necessary.
Well, I want to ask you also about your pipeline, and specifically Alzheimer's disease. Lilly has been committed to Alzheimer's for a long time, but of course you've been through so many failures. You've spent so much money. Last year, we saw Biogen have a drug in phase 3 that looked like it failed and then came back from the dead. And now they're saying they're going to apply for approval early this year. Did that affect the way Lilly looks at its Alzheimer's pipeline and the race to get to market?
Well, not really. We had, after solanezumab, you're familiar with that, which in late 16 just missed in a big late-stage study. We decided to pursue a very clear path to prove whether amyloid could make a difference for Alzheimer's patients, meaning if we arrest that aberrant protein either in a soluble form, which is what solanezumab does, or in the plaque form, which is what the Biogen drug does, and what we have a drug that does as well. But to do that in a very clean way so that we wouldn't have unresolved questions about efficacy. Those studies are still going on. One reads out pretty soon, the Diane-2 study, which is solanezumab in patients with this dominantly inherited form of the disease. If that is successful, I think that'll be another positive sign on top of what could be a positive sign from the Biogen drug. And then we have a plaque antibody as well, which works similar to aducanumab. That data will come out toward the end of 2020 or early 21. So we had put that in place 3 years ago, and we need that answer too. We also have a symptomatic medicine because symptomatic symptoms of Alzheimer's are still a major problem, even if we had disease-modifying drugs, and a tau-specific antibody that seeks to arrest the other driver of Alzheimer's, which is tauopathy. So all that's about to read out in the next 12 to 15 months, and it will be an exciting period for Alzheimer's disease and neurodegeneration.
Well, and finally, I want to ask you about a deal you've announced here. This is a big conference for deals for Dermira and an atopic dermatitis or inflammatory condition drug for a little more than $1 billion, potentially competing with Regeneron's Dupixent, which Sanofi recently forecast could be a $10 billion drug. How do you plan to compete?
Yeah, well, so this is a slightly different mechanism. It works against the key, not the lock, that's thought to cause this atopic cycle, which causes itching and eventually bleeding, some infections. It's a condition that tens of millions of Americans suffer from, and even more globally, and there's still high unmet needs. We hope that this medicine from the phase 2 results can resolve itch a little better, maybe a little faster, and perhaps have a better dosing schedule for patients. So we're excited. Lebrikizumab is the generic name of that company, or that drug. Dermira is the company, and we're going to, as soon as it closes, go to work to bring that to patients around the world.